So Captain America Civil War is the third installment of the Captain America franchise. Captain America and his fellow Avengers are still doing their part to save the day, but the governments of the world seem to think that restrictions need to be put in place in order to prevent more collateral damage. Captain America, aka Steve Rogers, is totally against this plan, but his teammate and friend Iron Man, aka Tony Stark, thinks that it is the right thing to do. As tensions increase, these two find themselves in a civil war, with each side willing to die for what they believe in. But who cares about any of that? Spider-Man's in this movie! Ah! So I, for one, was really excited for this movie. I've always been a big fan of the Marvel films, and I was looking forward to this one, seeing as how it's based on a really good Marvel comic. I mean, I'm not super excited. I mean, I'm not a super fanboy nerd or anything. I spent money on this. I was also really excited for this movie, seeing as how it's from the same directors of Captain America Winter Soldier, which is one of my personal favorite Marvel movies, probably in my top 3. It was dark, had terrific action, great characters, and it was overall just a great movie. Now this movie's called Captain America Civil War, but really it should be called Avengers Civil War with all the characters in this movie. I mean, you got Captain America, Iron Man, Black Panther, Hawkeye, Black Widow, and many more. I'm happy to say though, this is another great Marvel film. I really enjoyed it. This movie is the definition of a crowd-pleasing movie, and it was thoroughly entertaining. And a lot of that is due in part to the action. This has without a doubt the best action out of any Marvel movie so far. Rather than just having a CGI object fighting another CGI object, there's actually real stunt choreography in this movie, and it looks spectacular. That airport scene was like watching a comic book come to life. Seeing all these characters fighting each other, it was just so amazing to see. The reason why this movie works and a certain other movie where superheroes fighting each other doesn't is that I actually care about the characters here. Unlike that other movie, I hated the two characters that were fighting each other. Here, I really care about the characters fighting each other, and I can see both sides of their argument. Captain America doesn't want to be restricted by the government, but Iron Man thinks that it's the right thing to do in order to prevent more lives from being lost. That's an engaging argument. And pretty much all the performances here are great as well. Chris Evans does a great job as Captain America once again, and Robert Downey Jr. was born to play Iron Man. And it's also great that the supporting cast is excellent as well. By far, my favorite character in this movie, and a character that I cannot wait to see in the future, was Black Panther. His costume looks great, the actor is great, the action scenes he's in are great. I love that character, and I can't wait for his solo movie. And all the side characters are great as well. Falcon's great, Black Widow's great, Vision's great, Ant-Man's great, Scarlet Witch is great, Winter Soldier's great. They're all great. Now part of me thinks that some of the characters, mainly Hawkeye, Ant-Man, and a certain other character, they felt like they were kind of forced into this movie. Like they didn't really have a good enough motivation to appear in this movie. They pretty much just say, hey, you want to join us in this war where you can get arrested and or killed? And they're just kind of like, yeah, sure, fine, whatever. Like they're just totally cool with it, which it seemed kind of weird to me. That's not to say they're not well developed though. They're all really well developed because we've already met them in previous movies, and that's why we don't need as much development here, because we already know who they are. Alright, let's talk about him. Spider-Man! Now Spider-Man has always been one of my favorite comic book characters. I mean, he's Spider-Man. I grew up watching the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies. I had them on like a loop in my house. They were always on. He's snarky, he's likable, he's just a really great character. But we haven't really gotten a perfect version of him yet in a movie. While I do love the Sam Raimi trilogy, Tobey Maguire's kind of geeky and he's not really as charismatic as Spider-Man. But on the other hand of that, you have Andrew Garfield, who's very charismatic as Spider-Man, but as a Peter Parker, he just didn't really work out. And I could totally see anyone walking off the street and go, hey, that guy's Spider-Man. He's not just some nerd who I would never guess to be Spider-Man. No, that guy's Spider-Man. The Spider-Man here is played by a new actor named Tom Holland, and he's actually the correct age for Spider-Man and isn't a 30-year-old guy playing a high school teenager. And I have to say, nailed it. They nailed Spider-Man. This is the best version of Spider-Man we have seen in a movie yet. He's not some bratty and obnoxious teenager, and he's not whatever that is. He's just a really likable teenage action hero. The scene where he's just talking with Tony Stark is by far the best scene in the movie. But like Hawkeye and Ant-Man, he doesn't really feel like he fits in here. He kind of just feels forced in and doesn't really have a strong enough motivation to be engaging in this war. Don't get me wrong, I'm glad he's there and I loved every minute of him. It just felt like they could have improved his motivation a little bit. and he's really likable and really funny, but you see some of the humor, unlike the other Marvel movies, it doesn't mesh as well with a lot of the dramatic elements. You see, one of the reasons why I loved Winter Soldier is that that movie took itself very seriously. Yes, there was some humor in it, but it didn't overshadow the more dramatic elements. That's what I thought we were going to get with this movie, but really what we get is more of an Avengers-style movie than Winter Soldier-style. And what I mean by that is that this movie is much more made solely for entertainment purposes than it really is for storytelling purposes, because I have to say, the story in this movie is not great. Although really, it's not really the story that's bad, it's really like the pacing and the tone of the movie that felt kind of inconsistent at a lot of points. Like for example, that airport scene, which was amazing and I loved, and as a comic book fan, it was like a dream come true. There are a lot of areas of that scene where the tone felt very, very off. I couldn't really tell if I was supposed to take this battle really seriously, where a lot of these characters could actually die in this scenario, or if I should just sit back, relax, eat my popcorn, and just enjoy what I'm watching. Because the setup for this battle seems like it would be very serious, but when it actually starts, like, Spider-Man and Ant-Man are like throwing jokes left and right. They were really funny jokes and I was thoroughly entertained, but it was kind of hard to take the battle seriously with all those jokes happening. So yeah, the tone was pretty off, but that's not a major problem. This movie's still entertaining regardless. Here's one major problem that I have with this movie, and a problem that pretty much every Marvel movie has. The villain. Why isn't Marvel good at doing villains? You got Loki, Ultron, and those guys from the Netflix shows. Those are your only decent villains. All the rest of them, they're terrible. But you see with those other ones, like, they had some redeeming quality, like they looked kind of cool, they said a cool line, they had the cool superpowers or whatever. This one, the villain of this movie is literally just some guy. That's it. You see this guy? Yeah, that's our villain. He's just some normal average dude, and that is our villain for the movie. Why is there even a villain in this movie? Tony Stark's the villain. You don't need another villain. It just felt totally contrived and just stupid. It's a shame too, because this character feels completely wasted for a number of reasons. First of all, he's played by Daniel Bruhl, who is a great actor. He's been great in so many movies, especially Rush. If you haven't seen Rush, go watch it. It's one of Ron Howard's best. And also the character Bruhl is portraying is Baron Zemo, who I think is one of Captain America's best villains. He has none of the traits of the original character, his dialogue really is off, and his motivation for why he's doing all this, it doesn't make much sense. Not to mention his plan for fulfilling this motivation doesn't make any sense either. It felt totally contrived, stupid, and it just made no sense. One more problem I had with this movie is that I felt they spent a little too much time on the Winter Soldier. I think the last movie gave us everything we needed to see on the Winter Soldier, and I don't have a problem with him being in this movie, but I felt like the whole Winter Soldier thing took away from some of the spotlight of the Civil War storyline that was going on, which was basically all we really wanted to see. In comparison to the Civil War storyline, the whole like Winter Soldier subplot kind of fell flat, but there's just so much time and effort put into that part of the movie, it's kind of hard to ignore. Like I said, I like Winter Soldier. I especially liked his chemistry with Falcon in this movie, but I feel like his part of the storyline could have definitely been trimmed down a little bit. It sounds like I'm bashing it a lot at the end, but I did really enjoy this movie. It's got great action, it's got great humor, it has great characters, and that's pretty much all we want to see from a Marvel movie. With that said though, I'm not sure if that's going to be a good thing for much longer. Now, as much as I love these Marvel movies, I feel like they are going to have to change things up a little bit, and soon. It just feels like they're getting a little bit repetitive, and I'm getting kind of nervous that they're too afraid to take major risks like killing off characters. I feel like they're going to have to take more risk and start killing off more characters if they really want this franchise to succeed, and if they want viewers to really get emotionally invested with this franchise. So with that said, if you liked the other Marvel movies before this, then you're going to love this movie, but if Marvel movies have never really been your thing, then I wouldn't really waste your time with this one. In the end though, I really like this movie. So if you're like me and you lack the required social skills to ask a girl out to prom, just go see this and drown your sorrows in Ices and Sour Patch Kids. So is this movie better than Batman v Superman? Yes, absolutely, 100%. But the movie to still beat for best comic book movie of the year, in my opinion, is still Deadpool. So maybe X-Men Apocalypse, Suicide Squad, or Doctor Strange will beat it, but we'll just have to see. So anyway, that's all I got. If you hated this review, sorry. If you liked it, I'll make more in the future. Maybe. I don't know. See you guys later.